So almost 2 doors could open and then 2 shelves.
As a filmmaker, I try to always think about the core of every story that I tell. What is the driving force behind what I am filming, and what is the value in this act of documentation? But this core isn't always entirely obvious. It can be buried beneath soil and rock, hidden from sight, a pocket of organic material. It must be unearthed and lifted to the surface, molded into a unified, coherent shape to take on a new purpose, a new value. The molecular puzzle pieces must fit together in just the right way to form a specific and precious narrative. Of all the stories I've told, the one with the deepest buried core is that of precious plastic DePauw. At the surface level, the story of precious plastic DePauw is that we are building a recycling machine on campus, and there are 2 threads that intertwine to lead us through this narrative. There is the story of the ideas behind the project, the more theoretical side, and the story of the space that the project inhabits. Part of the story behind the ideas for the project lies within the people involved. Dave Hakkens, who is the creator of Precious Plastic as a whole, was the first to start writing the story. DePauw's voice in the larger Precious Plastic narrative began in the fall of 2017.
The whole project started about 1.5 years ago when Jen Everett first came across the little video link to the Precious Plastic project, that the international open source project itself. And she sent me this video link and I was like, isn't this cool? And I was like, oh, we could totally get money to do that. We should do that.
I thought that I wrote her an email that said, oh, this is interesting. And she wrote back enthusiastically to say, yeah, let's do this. But when I looked back at the email, I wrote, OMG, I so want to do this, or something like that. I was much more emphatic than I remembered. But she did respond enthusiastically about the prospects for making a real local project out of that.
Once the summit team was recruited and work began, the majority of our time is taken up by 2 things. 1, researching things like health and safety, the types of plastic we wanted to collect and how we were going to collect it, and planning how we were going to use the space. And 2, meeting with community members, professors, and centers on campus to patch the holes in our research that could only be filled by personal experience and expertise. Throughout this process, we discovered a few indispensable facts. Firstly, the number 1 plastic is the most common type. Its melting point is too high to be safe to use for our project. And number 3, 6, and 7 are all either too unsafe to use or just aren't prevalent enough. This means we would be collecting types 2, 4, and 5. Secondly, we discovered that devising a collection system is not as easy as it may sound.
Well, like right now, I guess we're having the little problem of like, how are we getting plastic over? And whether I think we're gonna get enough, I think is one thing too. And like actually getting people to bring the plastic or put the plastic where it's supposed to go so it can be brought over. Yeah, I guess the one little scare that we have is we won't have enough to actually make the amount of materials that we had wanted to produce.
Thirdly, we realized we needed more ventilation in our workspace so that the fumes given off by melting plastic don't build up to a dangerous level. And we learned that building the machines from scratch might mean that they're not entirely safe to operate.
Because of the accessibility issue, we had some safety concerns too. We ended up ordering those machines by kit, which took longer to acquire than we hoped, sort of delayed stages of the project. A lot of it was sort of timing and safety. I would say those are the 2 things. Making sure that the space is as accessible as possible and as open to whatever future the community determines for it means that we really had to put a higher priority on making sure that there's a sort of safe access to the space.
We try to make sure that almost everything that is in, on, around, or associated with our workspace was reclaimed or recycled. The workspace itself was built by a student for an art project a few years ago, and until we claimed it in 2016, was never really used. The paint used for the mural was either from a 2015 paint recycling project or retints from our local hardware store. The floorboards and siding were left over from a farmhouse deconstruction project. And our storage bins were made from used billboard vinyl and steel rods.
Here, I want to grab this in.
But I guess it will probably figure out.
The only objects that weren't recycled for our project are the machines themselves for safety reasons and our collection bins. Once we had all of these materials, we could finally begin writing the story of our space. With the machines built, the next steps were to run a successful test run and to continue collecting plastic to recycle into boards that would be used as art materials in sculpture classes. But this project is also important beyond the physical output.
It inspired me to have interdisciplinary multiple view on the plastic. So I think what I learned as an econ biochem and also I'm an environmental fellow, that's how I can combine all what I learned together to do that.
I think as I started traveling when I got older and seeing how different communities deal with trash and the way they consume products, it made me realize like how easy I had it. And then it made me realize, okay, so where is all this stuff going then?
Here in America, we don't see our waste go anywhere. It's like we just put it in the trash can, it might as well be going to a black hole and we never see it again. And I think if DePauw students see, and staff and faculty, if they see where the waste goes, like say their plastic goes to the shop and we make something out of it, then they have to face their waste more.
when I first saw the map on the Precious Plastic website, there are like so many signs on them. Each one of them is a very local, like even just representing an individual. But if we look at the map, like it's all over the world. It's very touching for me.
I think that's just like a great part of it is that these people who are like so different and like may have very different backgrounds or levels of experience are like all contributing to this like larger thing.
With all this being said, despite its importance, despite the excitement it fuels, and despite the hopeful voice it projects into the cacophony of cynical stories about the detrimental effects of plastic pollution, Precious Plastic DePauw is no solution. We may not even make a dent in the plastic produced at DePauw. So, if we're not solving plastic pollution at a local level, why do all of this? What drove the narrative of this project beyond the surface level? What is the core of our story? When it comes to answering this question, my gut reaction is to think of the name of our project. I think that our driving force, and that of Precious Plastic as a whole, is helping to change the way that people think about plastic, switching people's perspective from viewing it as a disposable, single-use commodity to a precious resource. But when I think about the driving force behind our project, it is also the people involved that flash into my head. Every person who invested their time in Precious Plastic DePauw, just like every piece of plastic we are collecting and recycling, has their own unique story. And through the process of creating a machine that will meld different plastic objects into one, the people of Precious Plastic DePauw from different fields, classes, and countries have also been brought together. It seems as though every time I think of this project, my understanding of the core of its story changes, but maybe it is this reshaping that has significance. Reshaping the plastic we recycle, reshaping the way we think about plastic, and reshaping our own individual stories to accommodate these changes. And then telling these stories.